Hey everybody, welcome back to AmmoMan.com. Thanks for joining on the website, and if you happen to be watching this on any other platform, I sure appreciate your support. Today I want to talk about how to use a two-point rifle sling. Some people say that having a sling for your rifle is like having a holster for your gun. While I don't fully disagree with this statement entirely, I do believe there's much more nuance to how you select a sling and how you set it up on your rifle, and then the training that goes along with it. The mere presence of a sling alone is probably only going to get in your way if you either, one, don't have a quality sling that is set up correctly for you, the shooter, and fits your needs, or two, have the necessary training in sling use and manipulation. With that being said, here's what we're going to cover today. How to set up a two-point rifle sling, a few of the mounting points that you can choose from, and then lastly, how to use a rifle sling. I'm going to be using just a regular AR-15 to demonstrate its uses in the field. These principles will transfer over to any rifle you set up. Just be sure to take into account where you mount the sling on the rifle. Not knowing where you're going to mount the sling on your rifle can leave you feeling like you're underutilizing the sling, creating confusion, and either getting in your way or causing you frustration and just ditching the sling from your rifle altogether. So we want to avoid that by gaining some knowledge and context and then utilizing it when we build our rifle out with a sling. Again, the main point of having a sling on our rifle is to be able to let go of our rifle and still maintain 100% control over it and the safety of others around us. So having a sling set up well for you, where you can still do any task you need, whether your hands are on the rifle or if you need to drop the rifle, that way we're not putting it on the ground. Okay, I'm gonna start off by just playing a little make-believe. I had a sling that I already purchased, but I just threw it in a bag just because this might be how you receive it. Let's go ahead and start by unpackaging our sling and seeing what we have. Here's probably something similar to what you're going to receive when you buy a sling. It's going to have a lot of loose material and a lot of extra length that you will not ultimately need. Today I'm using this Faro Concept Slingster to demonstrate, but you'll be seeing this Edgar Sherman design sling as well. That's what I primarily use and have enjoyed for multiple years. This just is relatively brand new, and I can show you how to set it up on a rifle. So first things first, we're going to attach this loosely to a rifle, and then I'll show you how to size it on your own body. Okay, so like I said, there's going to be a lot of extra length that you're ultimately not going to need when you set up a sling on your rifle. A little disclaimer for you: please do not get in a hurry to cut your sling to the correct length. You really don't know how it's going to fit all together. You're going to size it to your body now, and then later on you might add some equipment like a plate carrier or thicker clothing, and then you're going to want to get more length back, and you ultimately will not be able to if you cut your sling. So go ahead and just set it up loosely for now. If you have a long running end, just tape it down and then give yourself a couple months and see if you need to make some adjustments here and there depending on the clothing and equipment you typically wear while using your rifle. Then you can make some adjustments. After that, if you really want to, you can trim off the excess material and burn it. That way it doesn't fray. Ultimately, I would just say at least leave about 4 to 5 inches left in case you need to make some minor adjustments, and then you can just fix that tail up with a rubber band, some tape, or whatever else you have on hand. For starters, I'm gonna go ahead and mount the sling on the end of the buttstock and then right here on the receiver. The only reason I'm not gonna go too in depth on how to mount it onto your rifle is you may have hardware that I don't have. Typically, slings come with a tri-glide system where you just loop it through this little tri-glide and loop it back over, and that's how you secure it. I'm not aware of what sling you have or what mounting hardware you have. If you need to, reference the manufacturer. They're gonna have all the information you need on how to mount it directly to your rifle or the hardware necessary. All right, as you can see, I've only loosely mounted this sling to the rifle, leaving a tail and not looping back over themselves so that it's super secure. I can make some adjustments if I need to, so now all we need to do is throw the rifle on and see how it fits. First things first, be sure before you start sizing your sling on a modern 2-point adjustable sling, they're all gonna have some sort of system that tightens the sling. Make sure before you start doing all your adjusting to have it all the way tight. That way you can always introduce more slack when you need on the range or in the field. If you start making adjustments to your sling and you get it super tight and sized correctly and your sling's all the way loose, if you need to introduce slack, you're not going to be able to. It's only going to get even tighter. So be sure to size it correctly for you in its most tight position with the adjustment sling all the way tight as well. Whether I am wearing some kit or I'm just wearing heavy clothing, I need it to be as tight as possible, but I still need to be able to snatch it up and aim the rifle. If I can't do that, it's too tight. Right now, I could probably go tighter. So I'm gonna tighten it up and see at what point I can no longer shoulder this rifle. Okay, now I have my rifle size correctly for me. If I need to, and it's in its most tight position, I can still lift the rifle from my hands off the rifle and shoulder it in my pocket. I can also do a high ready if I need to, which is very good. If I want to introduce more slack, I have the ability to open this adjustment. I have so much more room on my sling. I can do any of the common rifle ready positions. Collapsed over the shoulder, a low ready, a high ready, or even a little bit less typical, but it comes up sometimes, a transition from your strong side shoulder to your offhand shoulder. That's plenty of slack for me in its most tight position. This is also set up really well for carrying around on the range, some rifle to pistol transitions, or carrying all the way on your back for a long movement. Okay, the second thing I want to discuss when it comes up to setting your rifle sling up on your rifle, something I see typically is people don't have a way to stow their sling, and that's a huge part of why people don't like having slings, is because it gets in their way, gets caught on things, whether doors, cars, and their safe or their carrying case. So a part of having good accountability of your equipment is going to be making sure everything's clean and stowed away. That way, if you need it, you can get to it, but it's not in your way when it's not in use. There's a couple ways to do this. There's plenty of companies that sell products that actually retain your sling. The idea is we're just going to try to fold up our sling against the rifle in a way that is not going to get in our way furthermore, and then we'll just retain it with some system, maybe a bungee cord, a rubber band, or any of those Velcro systems you can buy online. Some of them have magnets involved. I want to show you how I do it and done it for many years, and if you want to go ahead and buy a product, go ahead and do that, but there's really no need to if you don't want to. There's plenty of other workarounds. Okay, so on my main rifle, the way I've always chosen to retain my sling is just using some shot cord that I stole off of a gun case retaining cord, and then I added a cord lock to it that you can typically see on some camping equipment. That way you can pull it and then adjust this tighter. That way it holds the sling nice and snug, and then I can still reach all of my controls. If I need to do a reload, I can still grab that. So that's my preferred method. And then I just throw some another wrap, I don't even know where I got this wrap, over that. That way it doesn't get snagged on anything, and that's clear and out of my way. A couple of other options are using these really thick rubber bands, or you can make your own Ranger bands. These are a great way to retain slings on hand if you need and you didn't want to buy a product. You can just snip a relatively thick portion of that bicycle tube and then stretch this over your rail, and then you'll have equivalently the same thing as what I'm running to retain this sling. If you need to use your sling, all you're going to need to do is to pull it out of that retaining cord and slip the sling over your body. Let's take a second and cover how to actually wear a 2-point sling. I tried to use verbiage that would make sense for lefties and use either support side or strong side verbiage. But what we're going to go ahead and do is first grab your rifle with your strong hand by the grip, and then take that rifle sling and throw it over your body with your support hand going through it. Now the sling should be running over your strong side shoulder and underneath your support side arm. This is going to be the most typical way you've seen people use a sling, and it's easy to utilize this in most positions. Let's take a second and talk about all the different points you can set up your sling on your rifle. There's really 4 main ones and a couple of variables in between, which you're more than welcome to explore that. I'm just going to talk about this far end of the rifle, the end of the receiver right here, the pistol grip, and then the end of the stock. The far ends of the rifle has been the longest standing and most widely used mounting point for setting up a sling on your rifle. I think it's an overall really solid place to mount your sling to your rifle, and it's very typical. Some of the pros is that it's a really great way to get stability for taking fast shots up close, or if you need to stabilize for a far off shot, it's another great way to add tension to the rifle. It also shifts minimally when you're walking, running, or climbing. It takes a fair amount of training to get comfortable manipulating your rifle with the sling covering your arm at the far end. It takes a lot of training to do your reloads and then even transitioning to your pistol. All of this can be overcome with training, especially the shoulder transitions. You can work through that. But a lot of those problems are alleviated by mounting the sling by the pistol grip because it has a hinge point. So just keep that in mind and train accordingly. I'm sure you've seen guys on the internet and in real life wearing their sling like a necklace. They'll start wearing it like this, and then when they need extra room in their sling, they'll slip their support arm out, and now their sling is simply around their neck. This introduces some much needed space in the sling so that you can manipulate it in more complex movements. I think that's a great option for an emergency. I just try to avoid it if at all possible. The heavier your rifle gets, the more it's going to weigh on your entire body. Our neck is weak. Our back is strong. So I'm going to do as much as I can to set up a sling to promote and allow me to use my sling in different positions without having to resort to slipping it around my neck like a necklace. That's just a huge bummer for me, and I don't like it, but it does work well in an emergency. So I sometimes use it when I just am not getting the slack I need and I need to move the rifle out of the way. I will drop my support arm out to create a little bit of extra room. If you set up your rifle tight to your body with no equipment on and then you throw equipment on, you're probably going to need to slip out in order to have enough room to maneuver that rifle in and around structures or in and around people. Another common mounting solution is what I've elected to do on most of my rifles, and that is this close receiver right here, as well as the end plate by our pistol grip. This is a great mounting solution for maneuvering a rifle. Its cons definitely come in when you're trying to sling the rifle on your back. Because there's a hinge point at the pistol grip, it has virtually no stability. What's nice about that is if I need to maneuver the rifle in different positions, I don't need to move it around my neck. It doesn't have to slide around my neck in order to get into those positions. It can simply hinge. The sling doesn't move at all on my neck, so it's not going to burn me or hurt me. If I'm needing to do a lot of manipulation with my rifle, whether it's low ready, high ready, a collapsed stock, or other, like an ultra high ready, this is a super great way to set up your sling on your rifle. It's definitely helpful on shoulder transitions as well because I don't need to swim out of my sling in order to achieve that. Again, the cons are going to be when I need to slip out of my sling, I move it to my back. This isn't bad right here standing in the studio, but for a long-term carry solution, as you see right here, it's going to bobble and it won't remain steady at all. So if you're needing to carry a rifle on your back, having the sling mounted on at least an end of the rifle is going to be far more valuable than this faux single point setup. If you need to add tension to the rifle as you're shooting, a sling setup on this close end of the receiver is going to be a little bit more difficult to create tension. You're probably going to have to swim your arm underneath it to create tension around the sling. This is not comfortable for long term. You could also swim underneath and try to have the sling running on the outside of your arm and then pull your elbow down to create some tension. This is now a super stable platform. It's just not as comfortable as if the sling was set up on the far ends of the rifle. So with our sling mounted on the far end of the rifle, we can grab our rifle like normal, and now it's running right along the outside of our arm and the inside of our elbow. If we need to create tension, we'll simply pull our elbow down, creating really good tension on the rifle. It's super stable. I don't even have to have all my fingers on the rifle. I can simply have it on the side of the rail, and the tension is enough to keep the rifle steady in my shoulder pocket. Taking into account all of these different mounting points, go ahead and give each of them a try and find out what works best for you. Now let's talk about the common ready positions of a rifle. When we talk about this, let's remember a critical element of gun safety is rule number 2. Never let the muzzle cover anything you are not willing to destroy. What this means is we need to be able to maintain complete 100% accountability and control over the direction of our muzzle using a variety of ready positions. Although pointing at the ground is generally a safe direction, this may no longer be the case if you have someone in front of you, elevated, maybe a staircase, or beneath you. Now you have to remember where the direction of your muzzle is and be able to flow between those in order to maintain safety for yourself and those around you. Though we may not be able to avoid it in every circumstance, the effort must be made, even if it requires us to alter the direction of our muzzles frequently. The goal with any ready position is to save time presenting the gun or the muzzle towards our intended target when the time comes to shoot, while still remaining as safe as possible and not hindering our ability to see and process information that will allow us to make a shooting decision. Let's talk about the low ready versus the alert. Because of diverse verbiage and how people describe a low ready and alert position, they're often used synonymously, but I do believe that we need to define the differences and that will be helpful for both beginners and professionals alike. The way I like to think of a low ready is the rifle is going to be placed in our shoulder with the shooter's eyes out of the sights. Their muzzle will be below and off of the target, but able to quickly engage a target with appropriate level of accuracy. It's common to see people talk about using a low ready and they're actually in an alert position, where the muzzle is already covering part of an intended target and then they're just calling it a low ready.
All right, so let's talk just presentation first of all, okay? Presentation, usually we will operate in like a low ready, okay? This is more of like an alert position, okay? And low ready and alert are different. You guys have heard the terminology before, hey, low ready. What identifies low ready for us? What is low ready? What's the angle? What is it? What makes that angle? This is the dangerous stuff, right? Yeah. So low ready is dictated about where my target's most dangerous things are, right?
Although it looks similar, I believe it's different altogether. Like I mentioned earlier, we must remain accountable for the direction of our muzzle. I believe there must be a distinction between when our muzzles are facing towards a target versus actually covering a target. There's a lot of factors such as, are you alone? Do you have others, maybe teammates around you that need to be accounted for? Can you see the target's hands? Can you see what the biggest threat is? Is it even legal to point your gun at them yet? You need to keep all of this in mind during your training and practice, and I would suggest practicing both a true low ready and alert positions. Similarly, the high ready has been demonstrated in a lot of different fashions. But for me, I define a high ready as the buttstock of the rifle is going to be trapped underneath your shoulder with the user's eyes out of their sights and their view unobstructed, so you can't have your muzzle right in front of your face. The muzzle is also going to be off the target, but able to quickly engage with appropriate levels of accuracy. This may mean that leveling off the top of your muzzle meets this requirement, but it also might mean that depending on how close you are to someone that doesn't need to have a muzzle pointed at them, may mean that the buttstock of your rifle has to go even farther, all the way to your hip. It also might mean you have to bring the rifle all the way up to where it's pointed directly vertically, and you still have covered that visual requirement. One of the last but also very important parts of having a sling on your rifle is having the ability to transition from your rifle to a pistol. So for those of you who are interested in that, I'm going to go ahead and throw on a belt and talk a little bit through doing rifle to pistol transitions. There are two schools of thoughts when teaching how to transition from a rifle to a secondary weapon. What's important is when we drop our rifle, we want to maintain the ability to move quickly and still access any equipment we need to. If we're rendering medical aid, obviously having the rifle on the front of your body is going to be a problem if you're bending down to help someone in front of you. So my favorite method thus far, for the most part, has been just to either drop it completely to my support side, whether you turn the rifle in or out, either way. I tend to like turning it with the magazine facing that support side before I move the rifle over, and the biggest reason for that is it exposes the safety of my rifle, which means number one, it's not as easy to get bumped by anything on my body, and number two, I can quickly visually see the status of my rifle, which gives me a warm and fuzzy. So one way around that is to get an ambidextrous safety. That way you can visually inspect the condition of your rifle, or you can just be very careful to ensure that you're not letting your rifle go off of safe when you don't want it to. I'm going to show you both methods right now, and you can make a decision for yourself on which you think is more effective. As I hope you can see, the differences are negligible. The most important thing here is to train both and see which works best for you. And if you're going to do anything, at least have a reason for it. Lastly, let's cover some of the carrying positions of a rifle with a sling. I think this is some super basic stuff, and it's easy to find out there elsewhere, but I'm just going to cover it real quickly. Obviously, the most common one's going to just let the rifle hang right in front of you while you're doing other tasks. There's nothing really complicated here. It's just a way for you to maintain control of your rifle if you need to let go of it, and yet you can still quickly use your rifle. Typically, while I'm carrying the rifle on the front, I'll go ahead and do the same thing as a transition, and I'll just turn it with the safety facing out. That way I can, again, make sure that it's not gonna flip off of safe onto fire accidentally. Another reason that I like this is because the sling is running over the magazine, which kind of traps it and forces the muzzle to be canted out a little bit and still in a safe direction, but now it's not bumping into my knee, and I can actually run with the sling setup like this as well. If I need to deal with something in front of me, the easiest thing to do is just to shift it over like I'm doing a transition drill, and then move my arm in front of the rifle. Now it's completely behind my arm, and I can do anything I need to do in front of me, and it's not impeding me. Equally useful is just while the rifle is in front of you, you can just move it to the side without turning it any direction, and now it's similarly behind you, not in your way. If you need to do a long movement and you don't need the rifle in front of you, you're not expecting to use your rifle anytime soon, the best way to carry your rifle is either on your back with the muzzle up or on your back with the muzzle down. The easiest way to do this, and the quickest way, is to simply just throw the rifle over your shoulder, ease it down, and make sure your sling is tight. Now your rifle is going to be hanging over your back in this situation with the muzzle up. Here's one of the downsides to having the sling mounted on the two closest points is that it's a pivot point, so it's not very effective for carrying a rifle on your back this way. All it takes is a little movement, and then before you know it, your rifle will be perpendicular to your body, and you don't have control over where it's pointing. The next easiest way to carry your rifle is going to be on your back with the muzzle down. I'm going to show this with the rifle sling set up at the far ends. That way you can see how this truly kind of comes together. So if you have your sling set up on the far ends of the rifle, both at the buttstock and at the far end of the handguard, this is what it looks like to sling the rifle directly over your back. Again, this is much more stable. The muzzle's in a safe direction, and even with some movement, it's not going to alter where the muzzle is pointing, so it's super, super safe. Another way is to just take your arm, your support arm, out of the sling to where it's hanging on your neck like a necklace, like I described, and then just grab the handguard again from underneath the sling with your support arm, and now switch. Put your strong arm through the sling and grab the rifle, and now you can place it on your back. Now you're wearing it with the muzzle facing down, which is, again, super safe the majority of the time. Having the sling set up on the far ends of the rifle like this on your back makes it super stable. You can run around, you can climb stuff, you can jump, and it's highly effective. When you want to use your sling again, you'll just pull it back around with your strong arm. You can grab it anywhere where it's easiest for you. I like to grab it right by the magazine well. And then I swim my strong arm back underneath. And then at this point, I'm back to my necklace, and I can either keep shooting this way, and then at the next available moment, I can swim my support arm through the sling, and I'm wearing it just like before. When you look at what sling to select and how to set it up, again, remember, a lot of what's going to make a difference is how heavy is the rifle you're trying to set a sling up on. and what is your intended purpose. So go ahead and try not to overthink it. Just get the best sling that you think will fit your needs, and then start training with it. And hopefully between these different mounting positions and how you plan on utilizing it, you can tailor your training accordingly. I hope this information was helpful to you and that you picked up a couple of tips and tricks along the way. Again, if there's any content that you guys are hoping that you can see in the near future, please reach out to me. I definitely see every comment, and I'm hoping to continue to help as best I can. I know I've been on a pretty long hiatus for about a month or so. I've actually been down in Texas doing some training with Matt Gibson of Ballisticraft Incorporated. There's going to be some content coming in the weeks following, so stay tuned for that. Thank you for your patience. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all soon.